I don't know how long these estimates could take, but make sure you're given enough time for travel. Get a little bit of detail if you can with the initial call, like what do you need done or an estimate on. Show up, park your vehicle, not in the driveway. You have a leaky gasket somewhere, so we don't want that. So park it on the street. Some brands will say, we're going to put up a sign just while we're here. And then it's knock, knock, knock. I am, you are. Right eye meets right eye. So we're not staring at places we shouldn't be staring. And having them to, can we talk here on the front step?
Did you write that down, Chris?
I did. I can't say I followed that 100% of the time. I'm going to be honest with you.
Well, it's tough for me too.
Yeah, that's why I put
eyes up here, Chris. My eyes are up here.
That's why I would show up with the sunglasses. I always showed up with the sunglasses mirrors so they couldn't see what I was doing.
You're asking.
Welcome to the Small Business Safari, where I help guide you to avoid those traps, pitfalls, and dangers that lurk when navigating the wild world of small business ownership. I'll share those gold nuggets of information and invite guests to help accelerate your ascent to that mountaintop of success. It's a jungle out there, and I want to help you traverse through the levels of owning your own business that can get you bogged down and distract you from hitting your own personal and professional goals. So strap in, adventure team, and let's take a ride through the safari and get you to the mountaintop. Welcome back to the Small Business Safari. Chris and Alan here again. And you know what, Alan? I can tell it's fall out here.
How so, Chris?
Because I went to Costco and I go shopping. And what do they have out there?
Christmas
decorations. So it's the fall in Georgia. And here we are in October with Costco selling Christmas decorations.
Yeah.
Yep.
You may ask, why did I bring that up?
Why'd you bring that up, Chris?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up, Alan. The reason I bring that up is because today's guest, Wayne Scherger, who will introduce himself in just a second after we say cheers, is a master of sales and a master of making sure that you pre-plan before you go into a sales pitch. And then when you get into the sales pitch, execute on it. And that's what Costco has done. They have pre-planned, got ready, and now we are ahead of the curve, and you can go out there and buy a snowman for Halloween.
So you're a fan of that, huh, Wayne?
Yes, I must be.
He didn't know he was, but now he is.
I think we should start it in August.
All right. Well, as we say with every episode,
cheers.
Cheers. And cheers to you, Wayne.
Thank you.
Your fancy new beer mug that you spilled once already.
And so fancy new beer mug in our remote location. And I spilled the beer all over Wayne before we got started. So now Wayne is bathing in beer like he just won the division series or something.
That's
like in baseball. So let's get the champagne out. Let's get going. But I am drinking out of my world champion Atlanta Braves cup.
It's not just a cup.
It is a beer bat. So you can see it. Yep. If you can't see it on the
so that
podcast,
was actually a bat. Is that correct?
It was a bat that they crafted into a beer mug.
Yeah, they just made it a little tippy on the bottom.
And it's very tippy, especially when a guy's trying to set up with a million ropes all around him and wires. So today's episode, what I want to really get into is we're going to talk about Wayne's background and what he's done, not only for me, but for many companies throughout the home services space. But we're going to talk about sales process, how to scale and scale correctly. And we'll talk about a little bit more of the war stories that go along with it because Wayne has plenty of them. But before we get started, Wayne, why don't you tell you who the hell are you and where the hell did you come from?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I was looking forward to joining both of you today. So looking forward to that. Here is the 20-second elevator pitch. So my background with small business really started in college. I was a junior and I bought a franchise with College Pro Painters, which was quite popular at the time in Canada. So I've been a franchisee, a master franchisee, an area developer, and a franchisor twice. So pretty good background in the home services field. I've done executive coaching with CEOs around the world, 5 different continents. And I also do some peer group advisory boards. So I'd love to keep in touch with small business and helping them along with systems and processes. So that's a little background.
And another good Canadian. We've had a lot of Canadians on this podcast.
Yeah, we have. That's for sure. It's funny how I flocked to so many Canadians.
Very
like
entrepreneurial country.
And a lot of franchises up there too.
Yep.
Amazing. We've had a number of people that we talked to on the podcast from that area who are talking about franchises and being in franchises. So let's jump back into this. In college, you said, I'm going to jump into College Pro Painters. We've actually had a couple guests on here who have come through the College Pro process. So clearly College Pro Painters had something going on that made some sense. So you got into it. It was just supposed to be for the summer, and next thing you know, you're working in it, going after it.
Yeah. I started as a painter, and then the area opened up that I was working in, and somehow they offered me the franchise for it. It was a 1-year deal, no money up front. So what risk do you have? They paid for, your initial marketing and everything like that. So I did that residentially for 2 years, and then I hit over 100,000 in revenues each summer. So that was about 100 houses a summer that I'd paint. So
Wow.
within a fairly small geographic territory. And then I thought I could do something a little more commercial. So I moved to Vancouver, and my agreement only allowed me to paint high rises and condominiums. So no residential. And I paid no attention, like, where are you going to get the cash flow for this? Because they're not going to pay you every 3 days. So, but anyway, I did north of $300,000 in a year, and which translate to dollars now, that's probably 600,000 to 700,000.
And it's Canadian dollars. Yeah.
That's what he's saying.
Canadian.
I'm just still thinking about, you go from just being a college kid painting a few houses, and now you're on a ladder or a scaffold.
Well, I learned pretty early, hire very well-trained people. I played college basketball. So in my residential years, I hired all my basketball buddies so
smart.
they could paint soffits standing there. And the houses were relatively new.
Gold nugget. If you're going to do this, hire guys who are really tall.
Tall. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're going to work in basements and crawl spaces,
then
hire
you need
really small guys.
Yeah. Well, we didn't do any of that.
Perfect.
And then the commercial, I learned how to subcontract very early to people that knew what they were doing, and I just became a sales and marketing business.
Genius.
And booking work was not particularly hard. So that kind of got me into the small business, where I learned lots of sales, marketing. And then I got into working for the franchisor. So I learned recruit, train, and support.
So you moved into the corporate world, started doing the franchising work. At what point did you say, you know what, I think I can do this all over on my own?
I knew I needed some experience. So I was in Toronto at the time. So even though it was Calgary, Vancouver, I ended up in Toronto. And 1 year there was an opening in the Boston market for College Pro. So I took an intercompany transfer and got to Boston, and the housing stock was completely different. Triple deckers, everything wood, old. And so I figured out a way to double or triple or quadruple my average job size with just being in Boston, learning how to book triple decker wooden structures.
Huh.
And then I got a little tired of the student painting business, and I was working for a company at the time called First Service, which owned College Pro. Was their first acquisition. They've since purchased California Closets, Pillar to Post, Paul Davis Restoration. There's a number of brands. And CertaPro was the first, where they wanted to get into a non-student business. And so I partnered with them in that. And that was my first franchisor launch. And so that was a different model. It wasn't necessarily all residential. It was a blend of residential and focusing, because I learned how to paint these triple deckers and high rises. And, I'd been on 30-story buildings on scaffolding. So, you don't want me out there.
Right.
But I figured out, we're just a sales and marketing company. So everything was subcontracted. And I learned that you're just a subcontractor in kind of in the painting business, but I learned how to floor sand and install gutters and replace siding on buildings and things like that, build decks, all just associated services with the painting.
So as you're driving into this and doing this work, and you're building this CertaPro, which is still out there today. Still,
world's largest
franchise painting company. If you haven't figured it out and you're listening to this, Wayne always has his eye on what's next. In fact, one of his favorite phrases that he's used with me is "I'm the alien in the room," and I identify with that. So you're there, you're the alien in the room with everybody. What were you trying to figure out to do next? Was it going to be gutters and roofs, to do whole house exteriors? What
anything that you could that was home services related, that the customer was looking for a one-stop, they could trust I'd find the right people to do the work. So I knew nothing about floor sanding, but I hired a bunch of Vietnamese crews that's all they did. All I had to do was book the jobs.
Another gold nugget. You want to get your floor sanded? Where do you go?
Hire Vietnamese crews.
Yeah. Here in Atlanta, I tell you, actually, there's a number of Brazilian guys here.
Whatever the
really
culture
good.
is,
Yeah.
ethnic group.
Yeah, but that it's a right. In fact, that's not. I think that's the badge of honor for some of these guys when you hear about that. So you kept going in. You're working up the R.O.T.O.R. So you guys were actively marketing your franchises, and you were on that recruiting and training these guys as well.
Well, I took it to the first 40 locations, and time as a way of sort of running out in some brands. And so I took the exit to get out and start my own, which was Pro-Tec Painters in 1993. And on a limited budget, grew that up to 23 locations over the next 15 years. But it became almost a quality of life for me at that point. I was almost semi-retired at 40 years old. I'd recruited enough people that were good as franchisees. Retention's the thing. They weren't looking to get in and get out. They were staying. And even then, I sold that to a company out of Ann Arbor, Michigan in 2009.
Go Blue.
Go Blue.
What?
Huh?
No. Whoa.
Sparty.
Whoa. Sparty in the house here, bro. Back
By
that truck
the
up,
way,
Calvin
have you
College.
noticed how it just sounds like this all was so easy? And you'll say, yeah, I learned how to do this. And and anytime you tell a story like that, Chris, it involves some pain and hospitalization.
Oh, there's plenty of pain. I got scars to prove everything, but
yeah. I don't know. It sure sounds like it's a lot easier his way than my way.
Yeah. I like Wayne's way better.
Wayne's way. I like Wayne's way too.
Chris and I have talked about that, where his style is capital intensive and mine wasn't, but he also has an asset that all I had was intellectual property and some agreements. So the business wasn't worth a ton, and his is. So
yeah. Well, there you go.
It's official.
There you go.
You're worth a ton now.
I can't. You know what? As soon as he said that, I'm like, what vacation can I go on next?
Yeah.
But no, he does make it sound. But I know he's glossing over a lot of the harder points of as he scaled and found good people and got into these agreements. And he said, I was semi-retired. He actually was very actively coaching these guys and helping them with their business and helping them get in the model of what they did. So Pro-Tec Painters today is what we would know in the U.S. as 5-star painting.
There's a house across the street being painted by 5-star painting.
As a matter of fact, we are remote, everybody, and 5 stars right across. So Scott Specker, you're welcome, and you better be listening to this flipping thing.
So
because I'm the one who referred you to that group.
One of the keys to being a successful franchisor is operations and leadership development of your franchisees. So they're learning how to scale. So I know we may talk about that. They're learning how to effectively recruit. So it's not just check blood pressure and you start Friday. You got to know a little bit about marketing so that you're ahead of the curve a little bit, and just operational things that make their lives a little easier, which makes mine easier. So that was kind of the key. And I learned that very early on, that my skill transfer to them was important.
So let's go back to the scaling part for a little bit with the Pro-Tec painting. So you had been through College Pro, you went with R.O.T.O.R Pro in a startup mode as you went to the residential painting space. So you get to see what it was like to sell franchises and get people in. You were able to build up, because a lot of times people think, especially like in my business, and as you know, the Trusted Toolbox, we do home repair and remodeling, but we're not franchised. And I chose not to go that route. And you chose to do it. And I think a lot of people sometimes go, well, that's the easy way out. I can franchise, and then it just seems easier, and I can actually ton it and make my money and then have an asset and sell it. As you were doing that, what were some of the challenges you ran up against in going into franchising?
It takes money to recruit. You can't grow unless you've got prospects, and not everybody's just picking up the phone and going and calling Pro-Tec Painters. So it was launch with some franchise brokerage companies, and they take a big cut. but they will bring you candidates.
Yeah.
And so that was probably the thing that happened. And that more happened with when I sold to Service Brands. They owned Molly Maid and Mr. Handyman at the time, and they had the connection with all the brokerage agencies, Friend Choice, FriendNet, Entrepreneur Source. So leads were plentiful. So we went from 23 to 76 locations in 2 years.
Wow.
That was
So-
rapid growth.
So that's the capital intensive part to grow this. It really is. I mean, if you think you've got this idea and you want to take it from one location to multi locations to a franchise and an asset you think you can sell, that's where you get more attractive, is you've got a model in the process that's working.
Yeah. So from 1993 to 2009, I was 23 locations, 22, 23. So that's not a lot of growth. It was, kind of slow and steady, but it wasn't rapid growth, which 23 to 76 was.
Yeah, for sure. That's so as you did this, you jumped in you sold it, but you stayed involved.
Yep.
And then obviously exited because, once again, you're the alien in the room. I've heard. I got a friend of mine who just sold his business, and it's so funny listening to the stories because I've listened to Wayne talk about this. I sold it, and the first thing he wanted to do was change my brand. What? And he's like, "What are you doing?" And he said, "The next thing you know, they're throwing out something that a kid probably looked like he did work with crayons on." And so what you had as an asset and an intellectual property, they're looking at you going, "Well, you were just the guy who started this. We're the guys who are going to grow this." My buddy goes into his sale. It's now 5 months into it. Month 1, he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm going to be there for probably 3 years. I'm going to be the brand president. I'm going to do this." Month 3, yeah. So my wife has quit. She's not working in the business any longer. And I'm telling her, "Hey, well, why? We don't need to, right? We cashed out. We got our numbers. So, but I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to do." Month 5, yeah, they want me to go over there. And I told them, no, I'm not going there. So I'm like, this is going quickly. And it just reminds me of that, because now we've flipped over to talking about exit strategy. And this was an exit strategy for you. Were you thinking about actually doing that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
After that long in the painting business, 82 to 2010 or 11, that's a long time in one trade. And so I was looking to do something else. They don't, when these brands acquire you, they'll give you a 3-year window. They're going to they're going to have you stick around and suck all the energy out of you and all the knowledge, and then kick you to the curb. And that's usually what happens. And I was ready for that. But I wasn't old enough yet to retire, and the number wasn't big enough at that time. So I looked at executive coaching or working still in, not necessarily franchising, but home services was right up my alley. But working with CEOs and COOs on strategy and different things was right up my alley. And I did that for 10, 12. I still do.
Right. Yeah. So let's go flip over to that. We just kind of jumping around because that's my style. That's where I like to go. So
Squirrel.
here we go. What?
Yep.
Oh, yep. Hello.
Hey.
Now we're back. So you started coaching with other companies, primarily in the home services space, or did you bounce around outside the industry?
Initially, no. There was a friend of mine who was a public speaker, and he was a coach, and he used to work in the same brand, College Pro, that I did. And he generated calls, prospects for all over the world that he didn't necessarily want to coach. So I'd call, I'd get a client in Yugoslavia, Singapore, Mexico, and they'd have their own challenges. And at this point, it had nothing to do with the trade. It was all skill development, leadership, strategic planning, teaching them how to run effective meetings, how to interview and select people for different positions properly. So that's my leadership development stuff. So that's what I would work with executives on. Sometimes down a rung or two, start with the CEO and then end up with the COO and then end up with a VP op. So accountability was usually the biggest thing. Like, they would have initiatives, but they didn't know how to hold people accountable. They didn't know how to train them properly. And
Isn't that the truth? You spend all this time setting up the strategic planning meeting, which is a big planning event of its own. And then you go through the process of having this strategic planning meeting, and you come up with all these ideas. And then 3 months later, nobody remembers what you actually talked about. 2 months later, 2 weeks later.
or how to execute. Yeah.
Yep.
What'd you say again, Alan?
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. No,
I'm sorry. I'll keep it shorter for you, Chris.
no, that was better. But again, strategic planning, it's hard to make it stick. We've talked about this before. That's a hard one. And we actually touched on some of the things that as he was able to scale, he being Wayne here in the room, I'm talking around him. But as Wayne scaled, one of the things he obviously identified and worked on a lot was leadership and being able to systematize how you can train leaders on how they do what they need to do to grow people. Because with everything we just talked about, I don't care if you're a painter, a remodeler, a handyman, or any business, we're in the people business. And if you're not growing people and not training people on how to grow their own people, then you're not able to multiply yourself and multiply your success.
It's been a key theme in everything he said so far.
Yep.
There's a term, it's a relatively new term. I didn't invent it. It's called R.O.T.O.R, R-O.T.O.R. And it's works great in the franchising business or in yours as well, Chris. So first R is recruiting. So what are the tactics? Where are we going to find candidates? O is onboarding. So, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. T is training. O is operations. And the probably the best one is the second R, retention. That too often candidates or prospects are brought on, didn't onboard them properly, didn't train them properly. Within the first 90 days, they quit. And you've spent probably close to 10 grand on this person with nothing come out of that. Back to square one. So retention, it's kind of what you were saying there, Alan, is you got to be able, or Chris, you got to be able to keep them, keep training them, giving them new, you can't give them all 12 leadership development modules in the first week. Nothing will stick. So creep, crawl, walk through it. Show them, coaching, goal set and review, effective meetings, learning how to run a one-on-one meeting or whatever it may be. There's all kinds of things that you could train them or teach them, and then give them some skills and give them a little autonomy and support them.
Talk about what do you think is important to retention, and keep in mind that our audience is a lot of people who are thinking about starting a business for the first time,
Yep.
or people who are new in business. It's a tough labor market. I mean, what are some things that you can tell them?
Yeah, it is tough. Well, marketing is kind of the big thing, that if there's enough leads out there that you're generating, that you're jumping on quickly, so you're, not a lot of slippage / leakage, that, your managers have and or trained properly to go out there and write an effective proposal or estimate, sell it, and then follow up on that. So that's retention. Your weekly one-on-one meetings, your weekly sales meetings. And I've sat in on some of Trusted Toolbox meetings,
Right.
your sales meetings.
I'm a big believer in the weekly one-on-ones,
Yeah,
and not
one-on-ones.
many people do that.
No, they don't. Or they have great ideas, or they want to, and they do it.
Oh, Chris is rolling his eyes. Okay.
Oh, I want to have a one-on-one, Alan. Well, listen,
Not with you.
I don't want to talk to them.
I don't. No, I know you don't.
I have things
It's
to do.
really hard for you to do a one-on-one when you're on your boat.
Or at the President's Cup, or at the
Yeah.
Braves game,
Or
or
in
in Greece,
Barcelona.
or in Barcelona.
Yeah. So how do you talk to me about a one-on-one, or talk to the audience about a one-on-one? I think it's crucial. I think it's one of the most important things you
Yep.
can do.
Well, the one-on-ones are, you and your team. The team, it depends on what role they're in. Kind of an office person would maybe be once every 2 weeks, so the cadence is a little different. But if you had estimators or production people, you want those weekly. So you'll want to go through the goals that they'd set the last week. You're going to set some new goals. You're going to be asking them, what can I do for you, either time or resources to support you. Some of it is getting out in the field and, a ride along, or we used to call it a buddy day. So all this connection and communication is going on during the weeks, but your one-on-one session could be a 45-minute to a 55-minute session. And you'll go through, a little bit of it is build some rapport, but you're getting into the nuts and bolts of the business, holding them accountable, setting some smart goals, and, hitting, so they hit their proximal success. If you hit all the short-term goals, you hit the big goal. You can't miss.
I'm going to jump in.
You can't, because your mic's off.
I did for a reason.
Yeah.
I muted myself
Oh,
just
no,
because
you were belching.
I was. But what Wayne just talked about, and that was a great question by you, Alan. Look, I threw you that one of those.
Did.
Oh my God, that hurts that I just even said that. But a lot of times you say, "Hey, listen, man, you got to go have a one-on-one with these guys," and the guys go, "Okay." And then if you listened in on it, you'd be like, "Oh my God, that was a train wreck." not only did you just talk over the guy and just completely throttle him,
There's a real
and
skill.
it's a
There's
skill, and it's actually a skill that can be easily learned,
Yep.
and it can be easily taught. And a lot of guys don't like to teach it, and that's where Wayne just gave you the outline on how a good one-on-one goes, because you give people time to talk, and you give the other thing. And he used another line that I've used even in my own company is proximal success. Can you define proximal success for other people here on the podcast?
So it could be appointments. So your budget's calling that you need 12 to 14 leads. So that could be one, but you need 10 to 12 estimates. So there's a little slippage in there. So proximal success is that they've hit the 10 to 12 estimates every week. So you're going to talk about this because you're going to have their budget reviewed, or it's up on the screen. Some of these are virtual. Some of them, they're sitting across the table.
Instead of telling them, hey, your goal this week is to do 40. And
well, that's unreasonable. Well,
it's an
that could be
unreasonable
whatever
goal.
brand it is, but
Yeah.
that's probably a little unreasonable.
But that's the point. That's what I've used with proximal success, is celebrate the smaller milestones and goals,
Yep.
but give these guys realistic goals. Don't give them that stargazing goal,
No,
because when they don't
stretch.
get it, they lost it. And if they don't get to celebrate some proximal success,
No.
then they don't have a chance to continue on and make that whole.
Now, numbers can impact, your average job size just went up double. Okay, so we need half as many estimates. I'm landing more than 50%, which was my budget, so I need less estimates. So there's different ways to manipulate your KPIs, but generally, you'll have some true, proven metrics that's what you're holding them accountable to. So much of the one-on-one, though, is I'll throw another term out at you, situational leadership. Ken Blanchard, right?
Yep.
He developed, right? And Paul Hersey's the other guy. The situational leadership model, that is so crucial. I can't say enough that would be one of the first things I train people in. It's not hard to learn. You'll read. I think I sent it to you, Chris. Right? It's a
You did.
two-pager.
You actually you lead me right to my question, because it was going to be a great question. Why don't you explain?
Way to
what
pat yourself on the back, Chris.
for a question I didn't ask? But so we're going to have Wayne tell
One day I'll ask a great question.
someday.
Maybe this is it.
You know what? Or maybe he'll just go ahead and launch into it. But explain to everybody what situational leadership.
All
You
right,
have
so
sent it
it's
to me,
a
and I
leadership
used it.
style that between you and the person you're working with, and somewhat it is dependent upon maturity and skill and expertise, or how long they've been doing this. And so it starts as selling, telling, participating, delegating. So selling would be, we use a term S1. Then S2 is telling, S3 is participating, and delegation is S4. It's called situational for a reason, because it could be something. Alan, you've worked for me for years, and you've been a great manager for me.
Thank you.
I need you to do something this
It's
week.
all hypothetical, Alan.
Oh,
I need you to do something this week. So now I'm going to go from a total delegation to a delegation, or I'm going to tell you what I need done. So I just went from S4 to S1. Make sure when you work on the La Lamia house that you do this, this, and this. And if you understand.
and by the way, for the listener, the look he just gave me, I'm ready to work on the La Lamia house. I mean,
Yeah.
he just had the look. He pointed at me with a finger.
have to
I need
say-
you to do something. Oh, okay.
It did not come across in the podcast, but and you could tell you were totally bought in. Like, yes, okay. What do I need to do?
So
It's
it's
a La Lamia house. Oh no, that's right.
it's
Just
just
explaining.
situational. So that is during your calls. I may have somebody who's a train wreck, and then I may have somebody who's leading the league in numbers. So what's that call going to look like? If they're two different ones, and I need to be adaptable as the person leading the one-on-one, that I'm not going to ride the guy who's leading the league like Seabiscuit. I
Right.
may jump all over the first guy. He's more telling. He's not obviously hitting his numbers, and I got to get a little
That's
more
you, Chris.
He
involved.
pointed at me too.
He
I'm
did.
like, all right.
Well,
man,
because I was
seriously.
doing a good job for him.
You were.
Yeah.
You
he-
were ready to jump in the La Lamia house.
That's right.
You were leading the league, and I'm the bastard child.
Yeah. So that's the situational leadership model. And it comes across in all areas of the business, not just in the one-on-ones, but that's your main connection with your team, is your one-on-ones.
So go back to that leadership style again, because this is a powerful one. I want to make sure everybody kind of grabs this one. Sell, tell.
Participate, delegate.
So sell, tell, participate, delegate. You got to figure out those 4 quadrants, because I've used this in my meetings. There are times where I'll come in and I'll say, guys, you're just going to have to shut up and you're going to listen to me. And you're going to listen to me blow on for 15 minutes and you're just going to have to deal with it.
Zip it.
And there's other times where I'll sit there and go, guys, I'm not going to say a word. I just want to listen. And I'm just going to let him run the meeting, and him being my sales manager, Greg. And I've told him about this, and that's the way we did it. So I went from being the guy in there selling or telling, and then now delegating and actually just sitting back and letting these guys kind of run the meeting. But I'm trying to get him into those 4 management styles. And this is a great leadership lesson for everybody, just to kind of figure out how to do that. I don't care what you're doing.
Yeah. Most people's preferred style is S2, which is selling. So Chris, we're taking on a new project. You've had a little experience with this. How do you think we should do this?
I love it. Thank you. Let me take
Okay, now I'm going to listen, but I'm going to give you the illusion of input.
Damn it.
So
That
I was
is
already
the
jumping.
perfect way to manage Chris, by the way.
I was jumping in.
Yeah.
I was going all the way in.
Make
Well,
him think he's important.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and then the
I am kind of a
participative
big
one
deal.
would be, Chris, we've done this before. You've done numerous ones. How are you going to do it?
Yeah, that's a great line to use. I think everybody needs to understand that. If you want to know more about this, again, on this podcast, it's the Small Business Safari. Go out there, rate, review, follow us. If you want to get more information on this, go ahead and hit me up either on my Instagram, which is customerservice.freak, because we are
Freaks.
Thank you.
Customer service freaks.
You can also hit me up on LinkedIn, Chris Lalamia, and I will I'll be able to get you that document and share some of Wayne's gold nuggets that he's been dropping. So that's great. And I said, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, speaking of people reaching out, I mean, you get called all the time by listeners, and you had one who reached out to you this week, and it's perfect for this guest.
Here we go.
Yeah.
And so he reached out to me. He's got an idea. He's got a side hustle going right now. And it's a really good idea. And I thought this was the best. I actually talked to a number of people this week, but Nate's idea.
There you go, Nate. Little shout out for Nate.
Nate, you did a great job. And in fact, he's got a great name. It's so great that I can't remember it because I'm on the spot, but it's here in the Atlanta area. He's thinking about doing mobile knife sharpening because there are a lot of people.
Don't throw out Nate's idea.
Well, he's going to kill it. Nobody
Okay.
else can beat him. He's got this down. So anyway, I coughed because
You coughed so loud. I'm sure it came through my mic. It sounded like I did it.
but that'll
Yeah.
fix that. So here's Nate's question. He's got a side hustle. He wants to get it going. He's trying to figure out the right compensation structure for guys who could go out and do this mobile sharpening business, knife sharpening business, and do this. And he said, "Is it piecework? Is it this?" And I told him, after talking to him, is that to do it on a percentage basis, which is what I built my business on, which is commission based, it's very difficult to manage administratively. But it definitely, once you get the culture built, will help you propel you to success. I said, but in the beginning, being small enough, you know how long it takes to sharpen a knife. And if somebody tells you it took you 8 hours to sharpen 2 knives when it takes you 5 minutes, then you know what you're doing. I said, it's probably easier administratively to go that way. But as we talk to Nate and help him with this, he's getting this side hustle going. He's getting up and getting going. One of the things I talked about was, do you know your avatar? Do you know who you're marketing to?
People with knives.
Right? But
Yeah.
no, not just anybody with knives. I mean, especially because we're in the Halloween season, not anybody with knives. You know what I'm saying?
There's a certain percentage of
Right.
people with knives we don't want to deal with.
But what he found out is that foodies loves people who loves to show off their kitchens.
Yeah.
And they are ones who want to have really sharp knives, but also don't want to sit there and have to take the time to do it. He said that people literally call him and say, I'm just going to buy a new knife. Which knife would you recommend? He said, what knife do you have today? He goes, well, that's a knife that you're actually going to be able to give your grandchildren.
Yeah.
If you keep it
I
sharp.
got a Wustov.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we talk about that and he scales his business up, what are some of the things he should be worrying about or thinking about to help him get his business up and going?
Chris, it sounds a little bit like when you and I first met, where I was systematic about everything in terms of painting, how long it takes to do this. And you told me his phrase was, this is more art than science, estimating with trusted toolbox. And I'm
right.
like, no, we should be able to come up with time and motion studies for everything. And it's not like that. But in his case, how long does it take for him or just somebody that you trained for a couple of hours to sharpen a knife. And so then you would have some estimating standards for different things. So I'd probably lean a little bit towards that first. Figure out, you'd need to mystery shop a little bit so you could see what the market would bear for this kind of fee. And then marketing is, how are you going to make the phone ring? So there's list acquisition. It's amazing what lists you can buy in the United States. That could probably tell you who's bought a specific type of knife. We used to use, in the franchising world, when we were setting up franchise territories, we would look at a company that they came up with 63 purchasing categories. And we would use 16 of the 63 categories to develop a territory size. So we knew we were selling to the right person. We weren't just spending money needlessly. And then our keywords were certain things, when you get to the digital marketing. So there's lots of things that he would need to, or she would need to look at before they want to sort of roll out a concept, which would be marketing, which would be time and motion studies. You got to come up with the right pricing. And then how do you schedule this? And what's the software look like for CRM? So you got to have your clients in there and then sort of move them through the sales funnel. Okay, it's a prospect, an estimate done, or a proposal written, and it could be over the phone, and then a follow-up, and then we've scheduled them. And then how do you get your crews or your teams to effectively schedule everything so you get everybody done?
You hit it on
that was a treetop version. I don't know.
No, you did well. I think Nate has just picked up a ton of information.
Yeah,
because that's all freebie stuff right there. I just
give me
love
Nate's
getting
email. I got a fee. I should send it.
You're right, huh? Hey, you know what?
Free knife sharpening for life for Wayne.
You know what? Hey, Nate, I'll be your first free customer. Come on out to my house. I'm not necessarily a foodie, but
mystery shop.
Yeah, we'll try it out. So that was great stuff. I want to segue now and talk a little bit more about the sales process. One of the things that I also heard about, not this week, but I got an email from a guy a couple of weeks ago that said, I really like listening. I just like to learn a little bit more about this sales process that you're talking about. And I said back to him, I said, yeah, I'd love to catch up. I still haven't been able to catch up with him. Our times haven't been able to sync up. But let's talk about this sales process, because people talk about it, but I don't think they really understand what it took to implement, or what it takes to implement a sales process. So in home services, I don't care if you're selling windows, painting, if you're carpet cleaners or you're a handyman service or whatever, talk a little bit about how that sales process ought to work.
Well, that's changed a little bit over time as technology's increased and made things a little more available. But typically there'll be a 3-step, 5-step, 7-step, 10-step, 10 plus 1 step process. So every brand's going to have a little different. I've done some work for a auto body shop, and they're going to have a different sales process than you would have. Just different. But anyway, I'll talk a little bit more about home services, which would be a multiple step. Some of it starts with the phone call. That's an inbound call. They're calling in the Trusted Toolbox looking for some work. The call back needs to be timely, because people are now they're not waiting 2 hours. Years ago, they would mail in a customer reply card, which could take a week to get to me. And then we'd call them and they're like, oh yeah, I think I remember. Well, now they're calling in. If you don't respond within hours, they've dialed the next number. So the quick response, scheduling, have a time blocked off for the estimator on their calendar. I don't know how long these estimates could take, but make sure you're given enough time for travel. Get a little bit of detail if you can with the initial call, like what do you need done or an estimate on. Show up, park your vehicle not in the driveway. You have a leaky gasket somewhere, so we don't want that. So park it on the street. Some brands will say, we're going to put up a sign just while we're here. And then it's knock, knock, knock. I am, you are. Right eye meets right eye. So we're not staring at places we shouldn't be staring. And having them to Can we talk here in the front step?
Did you
So-
write that down, Chris?
I did. I can't say I followed that 100% of the time. I'm going to be honest with you.
Well, it was tough for me too.
Yeah, that's why I
Yeah,
put the
eyes up here,
sunglasses.
Chris. My eyes are up here.
That's why I would show
Yeah,
up with
eyes
the
up here.
sunglasses. I always showed up with the sunglasses mirrors so they couldn't see what I was
So
doing.
you're asking, I am, you are, because you don't know who answered the door. I learned this. I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit, but there's one thing that I learned from my friend Jim Ryerson, who you've met at Sales Octane, which was called the list. And the list is a piece of paper that you would hand the customer and say something. Most of my customers that I've worked with have some specific questions ahead of time or concerns. So I've written down 5 or 6 or 7 typical questions. And if you could take this sheet and circle the 3 most important things to you, and it could be price, insurance, crews, warranty, materials, scheduling, I don't know, it could be that. So they'll circle 2 or 3. I ask for it back. May I have that? And then I'll say, okay, prioritize these 1, 2, 3. And then they'll look and go, well, number 1 is, it could be price. Well, okay, well, what's your concern? And have you ever had this work done before? And do you have a hope number? Anyway, you should be able to.
Hope number. I like that term.
Yeah.
You like that one?
Yeah.
Guess who has it in his company?
What's your budget?
This guy right
Big
here.
Daddy.
This guy.
Yeah.
Because you know why this guy does it?
Because Wayne told him to.
Yeah.
Wayne looked at you and pointed his finger at you, and you went, "Yes, sir."
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
I went, yes, hope number.
So
Hope
that
number.
would be at the front door. Then it could be, as you're walking either around the house or through the house, touchy-feely, big ear method. So you're listening. You don't want to throw up on them with all of the information yet. Just ask as you're fact finding. Maybe make a suggestion or 2 that I'll say, at the end when we're sitting down to discuss this, I'll have a much more detailed proposal. Maybe give them something to check your referrals while you're walking through, because this could take 45 minutes to an hour, and then write up a detailed, specific and descriptive proposal. Ask for the order at the end. If, it could be price or whatever. But you've already identified a lot of this at the front door. And then the +1 is usually the follow-up, and that could be, we've landed the job or not, but when am I scheduling my follow-up calls? Wednesday nights or Sunday nights. So just tell them, this is when I make my calls. Is that okay? And then make your follow-up calls. So that is your typical sort of 7-step process.
We're having a master class here.
It's a total master
It's freaking
class.
awesome. Kenny, can you? I got to ask you. Give a couple of nuggets on how to ask for the business. I think so many people just can't do it. They know they should.
Well, again, if you do the list well up front, it makes it easy. When you get to the proposal stage and we're sitting across the table and I got Chris across the table from me, I better know what that, now some of it's done on a tablet now, but I am still a ask for the order in person kind of guy. And I'll talk about digital here in a minute, but I'm going to turn that proposal around to him and we're going to walk through it top to bottom, left to right, wherever my pen wrote something, I'm talking about it. So I'm going through this thing specifically and descriptively. You can ask for the order either at the top and say, Chris, I came up with the price of $4,300. This is what we're going to do for that. Or walk through the whole thing and go all labor, materials. The price is $4,300.
I'm
Pregnant
still thinking.
pause.
No, wait. You ruined the pause, Chris.
Oh.
He was pausing.
I was pausing with him.
Yeah, well, no,
That's-
that's great because
That's
he
as long
couldn't
as I
stand-
could pause.
he
That's
couldn't
as long
stand
as
the
I could
pregnant
possibly.
pause.
I can't do that. I can't. Are you kidding me? This goldfish.
The person that talks first loses,
That's right. That's right.
Chris.
So that's kind of, what I'll say.
F you, Ellen.
Yeah, with the, other than price or payment method, is there anything that's stopping us from going ahead with the job? So I'll
Ooh.
say something like that. Other than price or payment method, do you want us to go ahead with the job? Now, I jumped over handling objections and, a bunch of things that are in there. That could be a whole new podcast all on its own.
Yeah.
So
Ideas.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
thinking.
how to handle that.
But again, this is a master class, and that was a great question on Ellen. God, I said it again.
My
But-
God.
It was the, how do you ask for the business? Because that's the hard part. And so, Wayne, you brought up a couple things. Again, you've been doing this from 80 to 2000 and whatever, but the advent of technology is changing quite a bit. And this is where I would tell you that obviously we've changed quite a bit. If you're not an emailer, then you might not be our customer anymore, because older people who expect a mailed proposal or can't decide on the spot. I'm not driving back to your house to ask for that business.
You're an
a-
ageist.
Okay, so
I am actually.
let me address some technology here. Last year, I was working with a business owner, home services, and he had an 18% close rate.
A what number?
18.
And he's still in business?
Well, average job size was significantly high.
Yeah, if your
but-
prices are high enough, it
Yeah.
might be a good number.
Well, no, it was a terrible number. So I said, my objective with you is to get you double that to 36, which is still too low.
I've got a great podcast for him to listen to. It's called The Small Business Safari, and a good book. But good news is at least he's working with you. 18%. Holy.
So
I mean, what?
here's what we did. I sat him down. I said, open up your computer, pull up. I don't care any proposal that you've got on your screen, I don't care. Landed, dead, produced, and I used some screen capture software. And I said, we're going to block the screen, hit record. And I said, walk me through like I'm a customer sitting across the table from you. Pitch me. I don't care which job, something you're comfortable with. And it was horrible. And we got through like 7 minutes and I'm like, stop. And he listened to it and he goes, that's me. And I said, yeah. And he goes, that's horrible. So I said to him, you obviously don't do well face to face. Good looking guy, but he stuttered a little bit. Not that that's a problem. So I said, we're going to use some technology, some software here. So I had him use Loom, which is not Zoom, but Loom, which is a screen capture. Your proposal's on the screen, you block it, you hit record, and it is, oh, hi, Mrs. Jones, it's Chris from the Trusted Toolbox. This is what the proposal says, this, and this, and the price is, and I'm gonna send this to you now, and I'm gonna follow up with a phone call within an hour. So we eliminated the face-to-face, but you were able to specifically and descriptively say to the customer what we're doing and just give anecdotal stories. And you can also toggle between pictures. So you could see some rotted wood, or could be a bathroom install or something like that. And he doubled his close rate to 36 within about 3 months.
So he sent him a recorded.
Yep. A recording.
So if he botched it, he could redo it.
He botched it, he could redo it.
Nice.
And so it was almost as good as sitting across the table from the customer, but without the ums and the buts and the and all that sort of stuff. It was good. Now, nothing beats the face-to-face, and you still got to ask for the order, and you still got to do your callbacks and all those sort of things. But he was thrilled, and really his business turned around pretty quickly with
That's
that.
brilliant.
That is brilliant. I think that's why I bring up the technology piece, and you hit exactly where I was hoping you were going. People buy from people they like.
Yep.
People don't buy from companies. I mean, we're going to go out and buy from Amazon because we have that assurance. But in our world, especially home services, people buy from people. As long as they have a company and that's assured behind them, they'll do that. But blindly buying a company is very hard. And you're right there in front of them. I just got done explaining this to my my call center ladies that they're my first touch customer service superstars. And I put words on a screen. I said, if I said I want to meet you ASAP in all caps, give me the tone. What did you think I did?
Yelling.
Yeah, yelling. So I told him that. I said, so when you're on the phone, it's that warm smile, and you're doing that through the phone, which is hard. That's one medium. It's hard. Doing it technologically today, we actually have closed a lot of business with text messages.
So can I talk on that for a sec?
Let's go. That's why I brought it up.
So texting, there are different texting services, not just your phone, because if I was an owner and I had a salesperson, I wouldn't let them text from their phone. If they leave me, I've lost all that texting information. So Text Request is one. Text Magic is another one. They'll issue you a local phone number, and it's web-based. So different people within your company could share the same text number and just text out to their people, and they respond back. So it could be that a call comes in for an appointment today, and the appointment's for tomorrow at 11. You could text back and go, hi, it's Chris from the Trusted Toolbox. I will be your estimator. I'll see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock. This shows up on their phone. Text requests or text messages get read, I think 90% more than email. So that's a great one. You could also use it for follow-up. Mrs. Jones, I gave you a proposal 2 weeks ago. I'm just following up on that. They're going to read that. Another one is video email. There's different companies. Bonjoro is one, and I've had different companies set that up where a proposal comes in.
So you're telling me I could like hypothetically do a Bonjoro video from, let's say, Romania?
Yes.
Yes. Oh wow.
So
Just curious.
Just asking. Hypothetically, in air quotes,
or the President's Cup. So Bonjoro is
Wayne doesn't miss anything.
Yeah.
Did not miss that one.
I heard that. Bonjoro is a video that's you could, and it's you. And when it gets into their email, it's the video. It's not like I got to click a link. You just hit the triangle in the circle, YouTube-ish. And hi, it's Chris from the Trusted Toolbox. I know I'm just calling to introduce myself. I'll see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock. I'm just confirming the phone number. So now it's
that
video.
part's going to be hard to do from Fiji.
Yeah, maybe. But nothing's more impactful than video. That's why YouTube's the number 2 search engine. So Bonjoro is a great one. You could also use that for follow-up as well. We gave you a bid 2 weeks ago, Mrs. Jones. It's Chris from the Trusted Toolbox. Just following up. You can do it from your car, just on your phone. You can do it from your desktop as well, but it works perfect on your phone. So Bonjoro is another. There's a cost associated with some of these, but
we've actually put the text message in place, 2 places through our CRM system. The CRM system we're on right now is Vonago, who will be sponsoring this because they just got purchased, and I'm going to go after those guys.
Get them.
You should.
They're coming in. But we use a text message. It's been very powerful. Now, it's a no reply text message, so we have to put automatic text. But it has actually set expectations across the board, because a lot of times our emails get sent to spam when we send the proposal after, or the follow-up after. When you send a text, that doesn't go to spam.
Nope.
And that's been great for us to kind of keep moving.
So what we've talked about is Loom, Text Request or Text Magic, Bonjoro. So these are tools that you should be looking at for your teams for increasing close rate, increasing average job size, cutting down on slippage. So these are all good things.
Man, I mean, I mean, oh boy, we could be going on for hours and hours, and we're coming to the end because we want to keep it tight and keep you thinking that you got to get more of the small business safari. But is there any last questions you have, Alan, before I launch into my last 3 for Wayne?
You're so excited. I can see that look in your eyes.
I don't want to jump all the way there yet, but there's so much more because let me just give a testimonial for Wayne, and I'll have him push himself. But I brought Wayne into, number one, give me a sales process. I didn't have one. I was a great salesman. I was a horrible sales manager, and I will say this: that was one of my scaling. It was one of my scaling handicaps. I could not scale up by getting these guys trained to do what I called art and science. And now I call it art and science. He's right. When he first met me, I said, well, estimating the handyman stuff, it's a lot more art than it is science. Today, we're a lot more scientific about it. It's still very hard to do because we do so many different things. But getting the guys to follow a consistent sales process produced consistent sales results. And I can't say that enough, because even when I fall out of doing it, because I've been doing this for so long and I'm tired and I just don't want to go back out there, and I got to go out there and sell this thing. When I skip a step, I don't get the sale. When I get through it and I do the whole thing, I just did this the other day. All my guys were booked up, and this lady was freaking out because there was a leak coming in her house. She's afraid the whole house is going to fall down. I'm like, let me come over there. And I did it. But I consciously said, all right, I'm going to read my own sales process, and I'm going to follow it when I was there. And I did. And boom, won the business.
What do you know?
Yeah.
I do have a question.
Go.
Yeah, just I mean, you are crushing it today. There's so much good content, so many gold nuggets, unbelievable. But for the folks listening, and let's just say you're somebody who's going to hire their first salesperson. How do they do that? How do they find that right salesperson? Because you tend to interview, and it's like, oh, that person seems really energetic, or they're very charismatic, and then you've got the people who've been in sales their whole life. I mean, a couple of points on that.
Yeah. I think we did this with Chris too. So there's an interview and selection model you should learn. That's part of my leadership training, trying to find A players instead of B's and C's, because we've all seen that. Culture is probably the number one thing. Learning the interview and selection model, there's 5, they're called preferences and 2 abilities. Sales guys are notoriously less precise. How often do you have everybody with their database want to go updated perfectly? Not often.
Shaking
Not
his head.
often.
So
Yeah.
it's hard to do your
Yeah.
one-on-one or your sales calls because they haven't got in there and changed the status of job to job.
And they're very optimistic.
Oh, they're great. So you don't need leadership is one, precision is another.
I'm not sure that's the word I'd use, optimistic. But
Yeah.
anyway, okay.
Leadership's
I
one,
think it starts with B and
precision
ends
is
with
2,
shit.
introspection is 3, tenacity and attainment. So those are 5 things we want to ask probing questions on. Leadership's not probably that important for a one-person sales guy, right?
Right.
Unless you're bringing them on to be a sales manager. Precision, we know they're going to rate it 2 out of 5. It's just going to be that it is what it is. Tenacious. So instead of Chris, I don't have any leads. Where are all my leads? Well, why don't we do some phone calls back to last week's pendings or to book some work, or let's call some of the ones that a week or 2 ago that maybe be dead, maybe they're not. Attainment, how goal oriented are they? And introspection, what's their contribution to success or failure? So we're going to interview on that. There's 2 abilities: instrumental, which is look good, smell good, taste good. Do they present well, engage? And or fundamental ability is how do they endure their short-term pain, where they go 0 for 20. And I know I got to sit in on my one-on-one with Chris for my goal setting review. And I'm
Chris,
0
you
for 20.
suck. Go for 20. My God.
Well,
When they get in the deep, dark doldrums, man, again, 90% of your thoughts are negative. What Wayne's bringing up, I can't say it. He'll explain this in a sec, but by learning that, I realize we all go through ebbs and flows, especially in sales, man.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
you
yeah.
gotta. We say, "Hey, you gotta have thick skin."
well, Chris,
but
can
when you
say,
go for
like,
20,
I
it
missed one
sucks.
step and I didn't land it. So it can multiply. So at the end of this, you'll come up with a hypothesis: is this a good fit or not? I think you've even used me. It's great to get a second interview. So I've done second interviews for Chris's or numerous companies. My questions are not trade related at all. It is more on, can we track anything in your past that's going to make this look a good fit for the Trusted Toolbox or whatever brand? So come up with some scientific hypothesis on this person. And, this is part of the R.O.T.O.R, the first R, and then, the onboarding. So you can find the right candidates. We're looking for A candidates, not B's and C's.
Yeah, it's a hard, especially one of the things when Wayne first started with me. I mean, we're going on now, probably. I've been at it for 14 years. I think we started probably 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And his first thing was, listen, home services, these guys are transient. They're not going to stick. And I'm like, oh no, they're going to stay with my culture. They're going to stay with my culture. 25 guys later, I have 3 that I really like. And I think these guys are going to stick. But you have to have that process to allow them to see the path to success for themselves. And that's key, because they want to know, especially in today's recruiting environment, you are not trying to figure out what they are. You are basically selling yourself to them, and they're trying to determine if they see themselves in your environment.
Yep.
And going forward. I just got done interviewing a project manager candidate this afternoon, and this guy met with my remodeling manager, and they went through okay, do you really know what the hell you're talking about? And then he was like, hey, Chris, I really think you need to talk to him, which is thumbs up for Chris. Go ahead and sell him on the company. And that's what I did. And we'll find out tomorrow if the guy thinks he's going to like it. So it's a hard. The R.O.T.O.R was great. Oh God, there's so many different things that Wayne. When I used Wayne, I say use, that's wrong. I engaged Wayne. He helped me a ton for 2 years, helping me develop a sales process, the engagement, the learning. I knew the one-on-one stuff, but to have it down, the documents he shared, honestly, just the banter back and forth because again, when you run your own business, it's a lonely position. You're by yourself. You think you're all alone. And I know that's why you started the peer group forums, to allow people to find out that you're not all alone. You can get back together and you can find out and ask people some harder questions, and maybe they have some great answers for you.
Yep.
With some tough stuff. So I know we're coming to the end, and it's probably time.
It's time.
All right, Wayne, we always end with 3 questions, and I've got to ask you these 3 questions. And to be honest, I thought I knew all 3 walking in this to the interview and the podcast, but I think I don't know if I will. So, number 1, what is the favorite feature of your house?
Favorite feature of my house? Kitchen.
Okay. He says it with a question. I thought coming into it, because one of the things I was really enamored with in the beginning was Wayne called me, and We did a Zoom call, even though he was just 2 miles away. He says, "Hey man, I don't have time. Can't get there." He
That's code for I really don't want to be in the same room with you, Chris.
Oh, 100%. Or he had to get to the golf course quicker than I could. Damn it. And this is back when there was no golfing and there were no vacations. I can promise you that. And I was looking in the back. I'm like, "Hey, where are you?" He goes, "Oh, yeah, I'm in my basement." And he had his background. It made it look like he was in I don't know. It looked very
like the
homey.
beach or something.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was like this big house, great backyard, maybe a pool in the background, maybe a waterfall feature. Hello.
Kind of like what we're looking at right now.
Oh, that's
Chris?
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That just happened.
Big Daddy's backyard.
Big Daddy's backyard after 10 years. So, all right. All right. When you go out, and when you and I have been out there and broken bread many a time, but when you're out there, customer service, what is a number one pet peeve that you have when people are trying to serve you, whether it be in anything, any capacity, but a customer service pet peeve of yours?
Not listening.
What'd you say?
Yeah. It's just waiting for Huh?
Not listening.
They're not listening to me as I'm trying to tell them what I'd like
Yeah.
or I need.
Right. That's killer.
Talking over me.
Yep. That's a great one. Not listening, not engaging. Put that phone down. Make sure you're doing it. You said it earlier, right eye to right eye. Yeah, but that's contact, because that's personal contact, and you want that. All right, give us a DIY nightmare story.
A do-it-yourself nightmare story. I tried to replace the timing chain on my car without a manual or any skills.
Oh, how'd that go?
Not good.
Yeah.
So I got the fan off and I got the front plate but I didn't know I couldn't get it back together. So I had to hire somebody to come mobile to install a new timing chain and then get everything. So stupid idea.
Right. So your timing chain, it became a 3,000-pound rock.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, it was for a while.
Yeah. Oh boy. It was for a while. Wayne, I can't thank you enough for coming on. It's been great to have you get on here. I know it was actually hard to get on the schedule, but I'm glad we got you here. How can people get a hold of you before we wrap up? And we'll put this all in the show notes.
Yeah. Well, my website that I use for peer group forums is peergroupforums.com. I do have a toll-free number, but I can't remember it. But there is the basic number is 404-919-7030 will get to me. And that's probably the easiest place to reach me.
I'll get all the links in the show notes.
I'm on LinkedIn as well. Just my name, Wayne, last name Scherger, Scherger.
There we go. I think this has been amazing. Thanks again, Wayne, for coming on.
Fantastic.
If you found anything remotely interesting, which if you didn't, then you're a dolt, you're an idiot, you're a moron, and you should be beheaded in the Game of Thrones. But
Chris would like to have a one-on-one with you.
Yes, quickly. And we will make it a quick, painless death, because you had to pick something. Love this guy. I love having him in my life. Yeah, he's been great. We still pick up the phone and talk every once in a while about business, about personal stuff, about life. That's what it is, about making great connections. That's why Alan and I are here together. We are making great connections, and we are helping you get up that mountaintop of success. So make it a great day, everybody. Small Business Safari, we're out of here.
Cheers.
Thank you.